June 6th is a notable day for so many people around the world. The anniversary of D-Day and the beginning of the end of Adolf Hitler and the murderous Axis war machine. There are so many stories that have never been told about the extraordinary heroism it took to save Europe and the rest of the world, including the one about the only official canine prisoner of war, the men she helped save and the man she forged a deep bond with for the rest of her life. The book is called No Better Friend: One Man, One Dog, and Their Extraordinary Story of Courage and Survival in World War II. The author is a sports columnist for Slate and frequent contributor to the New York Times, Robert Weintraub. Robert, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Where did you find this? Because simply stated, as I read through some of the background here, this looks like the story that was so completely hidden it was almost impossible to learn.
Yeah, I came across it, just a two-paragraph mention of the dog in an old book called The People's Almanac, if you remember that from back in the 70s. Just a little heading that said the Pooch POW. And it just outlined the basics of Judy's story. Judy is the English pointer who was held officially as a POW by the Japanese on Sumatra during World War II. And I thought to myself, this is a story I have to research more, obviously, just from getting that brief limb there. And so the more I researched it and the more I realized that her story was really incredible, not just during World War II, but before and after. I thought I had a book on my hands here and I had to tell the story and share it with everybody else.
Frank Williams, the gentleman who bonded with Judy, a Royal Air Force technician in the internment camp. When you first got a hold of Frank, when you were first able to track him down and start talking about some of the things here, did you almost sense perhaps that he was just kind of going back a little bit and those memories that it was bringing back?
Well, to be totally honest, I didn't get a chance to speak with Frank.
Oh, really?
He passed away in 2003. And he had not left a tremendous amount of memoir or diaries or anything like that. So it made it a little bit more difficult than perhaps other stories retelling people's, who had histories in the POW camps. Obviously, Judy herself didn't write a memoir either. So it was a lot of research, a lot of time spent in the archives pulling out stories, and also some of the people who had served with Judy on some of the ships. She was a Navy mascot before she ever wound up in the POW camps. Had gone and talked about, because they remember Judy from 30 years later fondly, some of the things she had done even before the war started. And that really helped enable me to get, a basic structure of her story and follow the paths deeper and deeper into her amazing tale of survival during the war.
What was maybe the one story that you came across that made you stop for a moment? Because I know as writers, you find something and the emotional level just strikes you when you see something.
Yeah, great question. For me, it was when Frank and Judy, they had already met in one of the camps. And of course, they, as you mentioned, formed this incredible bond. And one dark night in the jungle, they were working on a railway, a death railway, like you saw in the bridge on the River Kwai in Sumatra. And Frank was ridden with malaria and dysentery, and Judy was suffering mightily too. And Frank thought to himself, maybe I should kill Judy to spare her both, the further pain of her own and or watching Frank himself die. And then he thought, maybe about killing himself. And both times when that crossed his mind, Judy just kind of raised an eyebrow at him, and her soft brown eyes kind of got right back into his soul. And he decided, I can't do it. It's more important that Judy sustained me, and as she did so many other prisoners, really set an example to survive the hellish camps, and they both made it out the other side to liberation.
It would almost seem as if that at times we sort of take for granted what it would be like, not only with dogs serving during the military, as they do right now, thousands of them as a matter of fact, but what they mean to these veterans once they come home, and how big it was, because she came home with Frank.
She did, and was immediately greeted as a heroine, received medals and all kinds of awards for her service, and then went on sort of a speaking tour, if you will, an appearance tour, a barking tour, going to the homes of people who had lost other prisoners or just other family members or brothers and husbands during the war, and just the presence of a dog who had been through what their family members had been through and managed to survive. A dog at any time really provides an amazing emotional support. And here was one who really had gone through the same thing so many of these other veterans had been through. She really, even if just for a moment, supplied a real emotional support for these families up and down the United Kingdom.
I got about 30 seconds left. I guess it was interesting to see that She was buried in an Air Force jacket, was she not?
She was indeed, yeah. The military presence really, lasted the rest of her life. She made it to Africa with Frank. The two of them then traveled on a government program to Africa, where she passed away. She was born in China, so this is a dog that had experiences on 3 different continents, if you can imagine. An amazingly well-traveled dog, and of course, the experiences, which you have to read about in No Better Friend, were amazing, legendary, whatever adjective you want to provide there.
I am a sucker for dogs and a sucker for dog stories, and I have got to read this because I'm already just completely captured by it. It's called No Better Friend, One Man, One Dog, and the extraordinary story of courage and survival in World War II, the first canine POW. Robert, thanks so much for joining us. Much luck with the book. I hope we talk again.
That's greatly appreciated. Me too.
All right,
Thank you.
it's my pleasure. Take care. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes in news continues.